The People's Bank of China has chosen the UK as the first among the G7 nations to access a currency swap line. On the phone with me now to give us his insight into this topic is Devonshire-Ellis, founding partner and principal of Dezan, Shira and Associates. Chris, in your opinion, who has more to gain from this proposed deal, London or China?
I don't think that that's quite the way to look at this, because both of the economies, or each of the respective economies, are fundamentally different. I think this truly is a win-win situation for both countries. It gives China access not just to the stability of the British banking system, but also through Britain's membership of the EU, access to European markets. We will find that European companies will use the City of London as a banking centre to trade swaps in RMB, but it also helps open up the Chinese market to British companies that will now find it more convenient to settle trade in RMB. So I think on this particular occasion, this really is an agreement that benefits both economies.
UK companies are currently showing a reluctance to adopt the RMB. Who then do we expect to use the swap line? Can we anticipate specific industries dominating this facility?
I think that's going to be a matter of some evolution. I think it's going to be a wait and see approach. Personally, I view that although, as I said, it will be useful for British companies to access this facility, I suspect that they will tend to be the larger institutions and UK's multinationals with business assets in China. I think that perhaps the main benefit for the UK will be that it will attract financial business from the rest of Europe. It affirms that China does view Britain's position, perhaps with the pound, interestingly, being apart from the euro, but it does it affirms that decision taken many years ago by our politicians seems to have been a rather sage one in hindsight, but at the same time also opens up opportunities for the City of London and its banking institutions to attract European business. But I think that it's still early days. That's how I suspect it's going to go. But we'll have to see. It's a new system for both countries, and I think we'll settle into an environment where we'll see how this grows and develops.
We have seen similar agreements reached with countries such as Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia and Australia. How successful have these proven?
They've been well received. Singapore in particular, I think now some 75% or thereabouts of its trade with China is now conducted through this currency swap line that they have. Hong Kong, of course, is part of China's sovereign territory, although the currency is different. The financial regulatory systems are different between mainland China and Hong Kong. But that too has also been an important trade aspect for Hong Kong to utilize in terms of its own bilateral trade agreements and relationship with the mainland. In terms of Malaysia and Australia, again, early days, but I think this is a very useful tool, and I feel that it's one China will be wanting to push out to further countries and economic centres around the world in the future. So I'm sure that this will become a model which will likely reach out to the Middle East and perhaps into Latin or North America as well, given time.
While the Chinese central bank has made clear its intention to boost the position of the renminbi in global trade, is the timing, that of a continuing global crisis, really conducive to this?
Well, it's a matter of some debate as regards whether we are still in a global crisis. That is not the position that one sees in Asia, where economies are buoyant. They could be doing better. For example, India has been a little slow, But even so, given the headlines, it's important to realise that while economies such as India's, as I mentioned, has been bobbing along at about 6%, and they could and should be doing better, that's still a fairly healthy clip. So I'm not sure if the term global financial crisis still applies. Certainly, there are serious issues which need to be solved with the euro and the political divisions within the European Union. But I see signs of recovery in North America. Asia is certainly on the way there, and if Europe can get its act together, then I think we'll start to see a return to normality of a situation which we had 6-7 years ago. So in terms of the position of the RMB in global trade, that is going to become an increasing development as regards its position within that. Although, having said that, China does need to make some very serious economic reforms, which will take a number of years to position the renminbi as a globally traded currency. It's got some serious economic reforms to deal with before that happens, and I think that those are a minimum of 5, 6, maybe even 7 years away. China's economic reforms are not going to be easy. So a mixed bag. Yes, the renminbi will become more influential in the global markets, and deals such as this with the Bank of England signify that. But China also has to match its intentions with domestic economic reforms, and these are going to be difficult for the government of Xi Jinping to push through. So that'll take a little while yet.
And lastly, with the City of London committing itself to becoming the centre of business denominated in renminbi in April of last year, and the Bank of England agreeing in February to facilitate discussions, when do you think we can expect an agreement to be reached?
Well, that's reading Chinese leaves in a teacup. But at this level of intra-institutional involvement, I don't think that either governments would be making such statements without there being clear intent to proceed. So I think we just leave it up to them as to when they'll sign on the dotted line. If there was not such intent at this level of diplomacy and of crucially important global trade, they would not be making these statements. So I'm hopeful that we can see this situation come to fruition very soon. But as I said, I think that's to pinpoint exactly when that is. I think we need to read the Chinese leaves in the bottom of our teacups to finalise that.
Thank you, Chris, for your comments. Coming up today on Dukascopy TV, Monica Gibson will be discussing the Swedish town being moved to make way for the expansion of an iron ore mine. All that today and more on Dukascopy TV. Goodbye.